continuously until I reach the edge of the stage. So, good morning, everybody. Well, this is the international session, and what I'd like to stress during this session is the working together, collaboration beyond Europe, beyond Americas, together all around the globe. So we have a number of speakers from different continents. And the first one I'd like to introduce this morning is Erica, who is going to... You know, it might be cozier if you all came down the front here, because it would be like a party then, you know, because at the moment it feels like we're alone. So if you feel like coming down to the front, that will be good. Anyway, Erica, you're going to talk about AfricaConnect, yeah? Great. So, go ahead.
15? 15 plus 5. That's too much. Okay, first of all, I would like to apologize because I'm doing this presentation on behalf of Mr. Ken Sylvester, the CEO from CKLN. He was he would like very much to be here, but unfortunately, not so unfortunately, but we have some ministry meetings that are going to be held right now on the Caribbean. So he wasn't able to participate, so he sent me to do the presentation. It's a very brief presentation, it's not that long. I'm going to talk a little about the topology of the network and explain what are the Caribbean issues and challenges that we are facing with this project, and talk about the AARNet development. This is the topology of AfricaConnect, and right now I can tell you that all of those links are in production, are activated. We have a ring, an STM1 ring, and we have 4 points of presence in Miami, in Jamaica, Dominican Republic, and also in Trinidad. From the node in Dominican Republic, we have our connection with Giant that goes to Paris. And from the node in Jamaica, we have our connection with Red Clara in Panama. And of course, in the US, we are so close to the American research and education networks. This is a more detailed topology of AfricaConnect, showing specifically the connections with the countries. The thing about this topology is the detail that we have an aggregation node in Grenada. You know, most of the small islands that are part of the Eastern Caribbean, they don't have too many universities. So for economies of scale, it makes no sense to have one AARNet for each one of those small islands, small countries, at least for the moment. So what we did is to set up a sub-research and education network, a sub-network that is going to aggregate institutions for all of those countries into an aggregation node in Grenada. And that choice was facilitated by the fact that our provider, they have a very good presence with MPLS nodes in all of those countries. So it makes very easy to set up a VPN from the institution to a node collocated wherever on that region. Because of that, we choose that topology. The other bigger islands are going to connect in one of the Caribbean points of presence. This is a diagram that shows more detailed the topology and the connectivity of the countries and the AARNets. So the regional context. You know, the Caribbean region is one of the most diverse in the world. And the problem is the small islands, you know, they have suffering from this problem of economies of scale because, you know, they have a small population, is based on small islands. They have a very high unemployment, high debt to GDP, and climate change. You know, that's something that they have. It's a region that's very prone to disasters, like hurricanes and earthquakes, floods, and because of the diversity and of the region, and because of all of those problems, one of the things that makes complicated to do a project like this, and I will show on the next slides, is the problem that the population is small. They suffer from the lack of ability to build the GDP internally, and you have a lot of exodus from the people from the Caribbean. They left the Caribbean, and they don't study in the Caribbean, and when they conclude their graduation, their course, they usually left the Caribbean. So it's very complicated to build a project like this in a region that suffers from all those problems. This is to give you a sense of the landscape. You know, it's a region that suffers from that. We have a photograph from the hurricane, the earthquake in Haiti, after the hurricane in Grenada. You know, in one day you have everything good, and the next day you can have a disaster that could bring a lot of prejudice, a lot of damage to the countries. Those graphics are to give you a sense of the scale between some economies on the world and the economies and the population in the Caribbean. You see, that very small slice contains the comparative size and comparative population of Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, Dominica, and St. Lucia compared to Colombia, compared to Uruguay, compared to some of, not the big countries in South America, but some of the countries there, just to give you a sense of the problems with the size of the population and the size of the countries. This is the GDP real growth rate. Those are the websites where we collect the data. So you see that practically all of the islands in the Caribbean, they have a small growth in GDP. You know, 14 of the countries in the Caribbean, they are among the top 30 in terms of small growth in GDP. That's one big problem, migration. Because of the size of the population, because of the size of the countries, it's complicated for them to have universities, big universities, that can provide all of the courses, all of the areas of knowledge. So usually it's very difficult, including to have an university. What they have is colleges focusing on some areas, but not all of the areas. So usually people migrate outside of the Caribbean to do their graduations, to develop knowledge, and the few ones that really develop their knowledge at the countries, once they finish, they usually migrate to another place. So you see some numbers here. And this usually happens during the most productive age, between 20 and 45. So the Haitians, we have 63%, Dominicans 53%, and Jamaicans 48%. You know, it's a very high rate of migration outside of the Caribbean. It's difficult to keep people there, the intelligentsia. So this is one of the problems that affects mostly the Caribbean, and this is why this project is important, because it's maybe it's going to be the vehicle to drive, to keep people there and stop this brain drain. The Caribbean Development Imperatives is spurring the growth of the economies by embracing new opportunities in the transitions taking place in societies and economies, increasing competitiveness, That's important. The Caribbean needs very much to increase the competitiveness in terms of economy and the development. Enhance the regional integration and cooperation through CSME. CSME is the Caribbean, the CARICOM group that is working on a common market and economy. Right now, they have some kind of integration in the OECS countries. They have the same currency, and they have a common market, but not a common economy. And the idea is to expand that initiative to embrace all of the countries that are part of the CARICOM. So the CARICOM is right now in the process of developing a common market and a common economy. They have signed some letter of intentions, and they have all the ministers and all the governments involved on that. Generating knowledge, reducing violence and crime, which is a big problem in much of the countries, especially Jamaica, and reducing youth unemployment and increasing youth employability. So these are the imperatives. These are the imperatives, goals to the development of the Caribbean right now. The issues that the Caribbean face about the tertiary institutions. The institutions cannot develop the critical mass that they need to be able to provide all areas of knowledge. It's complicated because of the size of the population, because of the size of the countries. It's complicated. It's difficult to find a university in the Caribbean that can provide all areas of knowledge, courses in all areas of knowledge. And apart from UE, of course, UE is the big one, but even UE, it's spread over most of the countries. They are not concentrated in just one place. But even for UE, it's not a simple task. So Caribbean colleges and universities are relatively small, offering narrow range of courses and areas of knowledge, and the programs are not complete. And there are only a few institutions offering programs in the areas of critical needs to those development imperatives. So they need to enhance the way those guys can provide those courses in those areas of knowledge. And that's why the network is important, because it came right to this point to make the possibility for those guys to have courses using the network and to develop the areas of knowledge, not just for the students, but for the teachers as well. So issues and challenges, top-down approach. Unfortunately, the Caribbean doesn't have national research and education networks. In fact, the Caribbean doesn't even have national networks, not for research and education, but a group of institutions that get together and connect to exchange traffic. So for this project, we have to take a top-down approach. Start with the regional network, build the CARIBNet, and then force that development to the countries in order to establish and develop the NRANs. So the absence of NRANs, currently we have 4 NRANs in formation, 4 NRANs in development. We have Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, and Dominican Republic. And the one NRAN that's not in a very good stage of development, and that's going to be a little critical, is that sub-network that we've built in Grenada, concentrate the connections from the small islands. But those 4 are in development right now. The absence of national networks and the poor institutional infrastructure, not only in terms of bandwidth connecting the countries or even inside the country, but often the infrastructure inside the institutions are not very good. And of course, lack of content. So the challenge, we are in a very aggressive NRAN programming right now. We received 2 grants from the IADB, and they used that grants to provide a blueprint to the development of the NRANs, and another one to provide a model of sustainability, not just for the NRANs, but also for CARIBNet. And we have developed and concluded those 2 projects, and now we are in the process of building the NRANs using the documentation and using the outcomes from those 2 projects. And we are in a very aggressive program. We are trying to hand over the access node to the NRAN and make them configure the node, give them training, and we are fostering as much as we can the development of the NRANs, because this is fundamental. We know that for sustainability, we need to have strong NRANs. And as I said before, the big problem with this project was the absence of NRAN, so we have to take a strategy from a top-down approach. We need to, of course, to mobilize resources, and sustainability is important. So we know that the way to get there is through the aggressive NRAN program and NRAN development. So the priority applications, this is not a comprehensive list, okay? But these are the applications that the people in the Caribbean feel that are going to be used for the first moment. So environment collaboration, research in environment, that's something that's important because of the region that's prone to disasters and things related to climate. A regional digital library, shared student information. There are some initiatives already in place in some of the countries that use internet, commodity internet, to give to the students access to information, to their information, their grades and things like that. But the idea is to use CaribNet to provide that kind of system to everyone in CaribNet. Support for virtual classrooms, this is important. Open educational resources, single virtual university space. That is something that you already have at the University of West Indies, but the idea is to broaden that, to include other institutions. And commodity internet access, functional cooperation, and telemedicine and remote diagnosis for anyone. This is the organizational structure of CKLN, the organization behind CaribNet. Those positions that are in white, they are filled right now. Those in blue are funded by the European Union. Right now I'm acting technical manager, and I'm being funded by the grants from the European Union. And we are looking for an applications manager. And that's the basic structure that we are trying to develop in order to be able to support all those goals that I've listed before. That's it. Have time for questions? We have some time for questions. I don't know if anyone wants to ask something.
Are there one or two questions? Andrew.
Also providing commodity internet access over this network, or are you keeping it purely on the academic traffic and letting the universities source their own commodity internet? And what was the reason behind the decision either way?
One of the problems that the Caribbean suffers most is the internet commodity access is bad and very expensive. So we know that for sustainability of the project, it's important to have internet commodity. And we are trying to set up the network to be able to provide that. But we are thinking first on a model where we can, because we have provided to each one of the NRANs an access node, a router, a big router that they can use. So it's a model that should work fine is if they get together, because everybody's paying for some internet commodity in the country. And so concentrate and get a bulk contract from that access node. But anyway, since the NRANs are in the process of development, we don't know if that's going to be possible in the short term. So maybe we will have to do that, at least to foster, to get people connected, and get people using. Because, you know, most of the systems that they have in place right now, they are using internet commodity.
Any more questions?
There's one there.
Not one. Yeah.
Hello. I saw on your NREN map that some islands are not connected. I noticed Guadeloupe, Martinique, Cuba, and Puerto Rico. Is it because they are tied to other NRENs? And what about Cuba specifically?
We are in conversations to connect Cuba because we know that for now there are some cables coming there, there are some initiatives. But you know, Cuba is part of Red Clara, is a member of Red Clara, is not a member of AARNet. And the French DOMs, there is also some conversations to see if they can benefit by connecting to AfricaConnect, but this is on a stage of conversation to see how we can manage that. Okay, and Puerto Rico, well, it's United States, so it's American. They probably are connected.
Okay, one last question up there, and then we'll move on to the next speaker.
It's not a question, just about Martinique and Guadeloupe. They are part of the French NRENs, so Renater is bringing some links to Martinique and Guadeloupe because they are French, so they are part of the French network.
Yes, of course, they are connected
But
to Renater.
You're right, Erico, we want to discuss with you also to find maybe some things we can do together.
Okay, so let's thank Erico again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'd invite the next speaker, Marco Nogueira from UbuntuNet Alliance, to come and tell us what's been going on in Africa. I think it's quite a lot. Good morning, Margaret.
Morning again, John. I don't need to speak to this one because of this thing. Thank you.
Just do the Madonna thing.
Ooh, well, good morning, friends. Thank you very much, John, for the opportunity to present UbuntuNet Alliance at this august forum. I can't see how many people are there, so we are hopeful. Our title here, Facilitating Advanced Applications and Collaboration, and with input from Andrew and Joe, who are there, and Professor Kone for West Africa, and Ongjin for some of the FP7 stuff. First of all, of course, we're very grateful to the AfricaConnect project, and particularly Catherine for facilitating the presence of an UbuntuNet Alliance group. 4 of us are here, and I think it's been very meaningful for us to interact with this group. We won't waste the opportunity. And just to remind you that in Dar es Salaam in November, we have the annual conference of UbuntuNet Connect and the African launch of AfricaConnect. So we'll be inviting, the call for papers is already out, and you'll be finding out more about that. And Amos, the tall, quiet gentleman just over there, is the one waving his hand, I can see that, is arranging the conference, so input with him. And that would be great for us. The more cosmopolitan that conference is, the richer it is. We'll talk just now about what is UbuntuNet, building the backbone, the AfricaConnect project, and just a little bit about our participation in FP7 projects, which has been a great kickstart for us. And as normal, Catherine was the catalyst for much of that. We have a lot to thank Catherine for. There is a map of UbuntuNet Alliance region. Things vary quite fast, as you know. Sudan and Southern Sudan at the moment, well, they are separate now, and we've been talking a little bit with Southern Sudan. Malagasy contacted us about a month ago saying they'd like to join, and we've opened that discussion, but they're not yet turquoise on the map. We've been talking a long time with Zimbabwe, and we hope they will come in. So that's a very big footprint in Africa, isn't it? Exciting. It covers the Arabic, the Lusophone, the Francophone, the Anglophone, the Swahili, the whole big bit down there. It covers a very big area. And I think from the previous presentation, we understand a bit about the transformative potential of the network. And I think when we look at how Kenya has moved so fast with the advancement of ICT, we can really see that in 5 years, many of our countries may be different from they are now. We work very closely with Clara. We appreciate so much. They're kind of like our big sister. And Marie-José and people can really advise us today. Joe and Claudia are also talking about capacity building, so that is an important relationship for us. What is the status of our NRENs? We've been on the go in various forms for about 6 years. Some have national infrastructure, a growing number have international capacity, and their traffic goes through the UbuntuNet router. And there's a compliance table of where our NRENs are at on our website. As they get an extra thing, we change that table. Dissemination is very important for UbuntuNet Alliance, and we appreciated the workshop a couple of days ago. We have our website, we've just developed a strategy document, our e-newsletter, and I'm afraid many of you, if I've got your business card, you're on our nuance list, so it's your job to opt out if you don't want to be there, because we desperately build, people who can receive. It's just a short newsletter, but we really like people to understand what we're trying to do, and we welcome articles as well. And then we've got our feet in the water of social media, but not up to our knees. This is the topology map, and I'm very grateful to Andrew, because the day before yesterday it was all purple and blue blotches, and now it looks a lot better. If people would like to know more about the size of the links and things, right now we're talking with Sudan. Sudren is trying to get it. Is it 2 STM1s, Andrew? 2 STM1s, and Andrew's trying to persuade them for an STM4, and it's been a long negotiation with Sudatel, and we're very happy that things are moving well for them. Every month things are coming, so it's very encouraging the way we're moving. WACREN, the Western Central Africa NNREN, we thought we might move together at the beginning of UbuntuNet, but it didn't quite work out like that, but they're moving on fairly steadily, and Professor Kone is their president, and he sent me those slides. Professor Kone also very kindly proofreads the French translation of Nuance, and our French Nuance actually has half as big a readership as the English one, and we find that very encouraging. We like that partnership. This just says they've signed an MOU with the Senegal NREN to host the NOC. There's the participating countries, and similar to some of the Caribbean countries, working quite closely with Renater. There's some more. They've 6 established NRENs, 2 operational NRENs, 2 in the process to be established, 1 in advanced Côte d'Ivoire. Of course, in the last year, the situation in West Africa has changed quite a bit, because there are various political issues that are still being resolved. Technical committees, connectivity, infrastructure, capacity building, and strategy partnership. And breaking news in Gambia, we had a very historic meeting. Andrew was there 2 weeks ago. I don't know if anyone, was it last week? Last week, Andrew, wasn't it? When at the annual AFREN meeting, which is organised by the AAU, Duncan Martin and Andrew for UbuntuNet, the president of WACREN, and Salim, whom some of you know from the Arab States Research and Education Network, met together for the first time to discuss the interconnections of the 3 African networks. And I think this is wonderful. This is below the political level, when there really is a force to work together and make things happen and share knowledge across the continent. I think this is something that is so special for us, and we hope by next year something more concrete will be reportable. Just let me get some water. When UbuntuNet first started, I think you remember this map. Africa was so lonely. One little line from South Africa. And as time passes, it becomes more and more like spaghetti, and the more spaghetti becomes, the happier we are. So you can see Africa now is not so embarrassing anymore. There's quite a bit of connectivity coming from there, linked to the AfricaConnect project, linking us, well, no, this is not linked to AfricaConnect. The first connections are through the UbuntuNet routers, which has been set up largely by Andrew with assistance from Tenet, and our traffic is moving through the Géant, through Géant and into the global networks, with the router in London and the router in Amsterdam. So this is great for our researchers and our students. And this map, I hope next year it will continue to get more tangled. Catherine will be very happy as well. The AfricaConnect project, thanks to Joe for this slide. This is a high-capacity regional network for the East and Southern African region to keep the traffic flowing between African academic networks in Africa, connect to Géant through the existing UbuntuNet points of presence. Dante organization, which runs Géant, is the implementing partner. The budget, €14.75 million, 80% from the European Union and 20% from the Africa partners. And we're in the process of collecting the 20% at the moment into an escrow account in UbuntuNet to foster the development of cooperative research programs between European and African research and education communities, open up research activities, and support NREN capacity building. And Joe's particular mandate is capacity building, and he's just established a dialogue with Claudia, which is very nice. This is a more technical side, ability to build, I think that should be and operate, layer 2 to 3 network MPLS. Guys, you say what that is, whoever needs to know, base network and underlying infrastructure, 2 continental breakout points, Ethernet preferred handoff where economically and technically feasible. I think you just read the rest of that yourselves, because this is somebody else's slide too. and any questions the guys will give you at the end. My background in UbuntuNet is as a librarian and a kind of bringer of people and things together. So Duncan from South Africa always tries to explain layer something to me, but I say I don't need to know, which may be wrong. So the capacity building side that Joe's working on to give our NREN staff and even the staff at the institutions, if they're involved in maintaining the NREN, the skills to equip them to manage their networks in order to benefit AfricaConnect, be done by attachments, twinning of our NRENs with each other and also with European and other NRENs, secondments. Kennet has benefited particularly from this program. And then learning workshops, pre-UbuntuNet conference events, online events, and sponsorship to attend things like the AFNOG meeting, which was on last week. The last 3 or 4 years, UbuntuNet has managed to make small grants to allow some of our members to participate in AFNOG and meet their colleagues from across the continent and benefit from the NSRC-based training, isn't it? The other thing that's very nice for us is we've been able to participate in 3 EU FP7 projects as UbuntuNet. First of all, the global project, which is where I met Claudia, and then Arena for Africa, and currently the Chain Grid Infrastructure project. This has given us a really wonderful opportunity to participate with global partners, to get visibility, and also to try and stimulate some of the applications. So I just have 1 or 2 more slides on Chain, but maybe it's too much. But anyway, there is the countries involved in Chain, right across the world from Clara to China. Coordination and harmonization of advanced e-infrastructure. We're working with Bruce Becker of the South African Grid Initiative, assisting in facilitating setting up national grid initiatives within the framework of the NREN if possible, and identifying applications and the development of virtual research communities. This is quite a challenge because research in many of our countries is still maybe based on 10 or 20 years ago of what was possible. So to try and help the researchers understand you can think in a new way and work in brilliant teams is really quite exciting. Like in Malawi, there may be some genomic work going on heredity and non-communicable diseases, and to try and help people to know that you can be part of a team analyzing this type of data is good. This is just the Arabian rock that's been set up within the life of Chain with assistance from Chain and some other projects. I'll just quickly go over the work plan because you'll find more on the website of Chain, but that's what we're working on. And this knowledge base on the website is wonderful. You can click on the map, click on your country and find who is the NREN, what are they doing, what is the National Grid Initiative, and they also have a wonderful applications portal as well. So they've been developed within the life of the project. And it was wonderful. The team came to our conference in Nairobi last year. You can see them all with their caps saying the Chain project, looking very happy in sunny Nairobi. And that's Dubungi, our DRC member, presenting on his desire to use grid to analyze the natural products of the Congo of the DRC rainforests for pharmaceutical purposes. So in conclusion, I really think this is 2012, isn't it? Yeah. There are reasons for optimism on the African continent in the field of research and education networking. The development of regional networks and related interconnections, the impact of the services that will run over the networks, facilitating movement of research communities and expansion of lifelong learning opportunities, that's very important. The massification of education, sometimes it's being done, like in one of our colleges in Malawi, they've resorted to a marquee because the numbers have tripled. But e-learning would probably be a kinder solution for the students than sitting in a marquee in various weathers. And then the capacity building of the member NRENs and the cascading effect it will have on the campus networks. Of course, we have the campus network problems. We have challenges. We don't like problems. We like challenges. But many of the things Eriko said also reverberate for the very different situation on the African continent. But these challenges are there. And just a reminder again, write it in your diaries, put it on your little machines. UbuntuNet Connect Conference, Dar es Salaam, hosted by Ternet, looking also for any other partners who would like to sponsor various things. Amos can tell you what. Promoting regional research and education, collaboration, sponsorship opportunities, workshops, paper presentations, welcome. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Thanks. Do we have any questions for Margaret? I can't see any.
There's somebody there.
I noticed that the West African part doesn't seem to be part of the UbuntuNet. Is it a different NREN, and do they have their own agenda?
Yeah, it is a different regional REN, WACREN, the Western Central African Research and Education Network. At the beginning, we thought it would be quite easy to work together, but there's a different set of histories in West Africa, very close links with France, different, Nigeria is the kind of the powerhouse. So when we had a meeting with them about 2007, I think, we had thought it was quite simple, but they said, no, we have our own path to walk, but we'll work together as much as we can. So they got constituted in 2010, and they have a website, WACREN. So that slide on WACREN showed what's operational, what's not. And because UbuntuNet was a little bit further down the line, then they're the early beneficiaries of AfricaConnect, but we hope it will continue and West Africa will benefit. But the relation, I don't think I said, the relationship among our countries within UbuntuNet is just so good. We have friends from Somalia, friends from Sudan, DRC, working together like brothers and sisters. There's been no political agenda has come into this at all, but just this mission that our young people will have a transformative education experience. It's been really moving, some of the friends that we work with and the challenges they work under, but the kind of courage and, little bright messages, that this is how I've succeeded in this thing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Margaret? Well, we've still got her. Okay.
My name is Yasuchi Kitamura from the APAN, and how are you planning to, are you preparing the IP addresses for the Ubuntu Alliance? Because at this moment, as Jeff Houston made the presentation, the IP version 4 address pool was exhausted. So if you want to increase the NREN's activities, maybe you need a lot of IP addresses. So you are planning to concentrate just on IP version 6, or still you are thinking of adding some IP version 4 addresses for the research activities?
I can see Andrew wriggling in his seat, absolutely dying to answer this question. So Andrew, would you like to stand up and answer this question?
Thanks.
The UbuntuNet Alliance for a long time has had a /21 allocation, which is purely there for the backbone. It's an AfriConnect allocation. At the same time, there was a project known as the Frenia project, which was a joint effort between AfriConnect and other funding which we managed to get, at which the new NRENs could get their own IP space and their own ASNs. One of the things that we ask all of our members to do is get their own ASNs and their own IP space, both V4 and V6. The Alliance network, every component of it is fully native V6 enabled at the moment, and we're in a position to supply V6 both on unicast and multicast levels. We can also do V4 unicast and multicast. There is a fair amount of address space that has been allocated to the various NRENs. We are desperately trying to avoid NAT, but there is a bit of a concern. Some of the NRENs have applied for less V4 space than they will need. But the other advantage that we sit with is that AfriConnect has a very large pool of V4 space still available, because Africa has a far lower burn rate than the rest of the world. And I'm actively encouraging our NRENs, go and apply for big blocks, because quite frankly, the faster we get rid of that V4 space in AfriConnect, the better for the whole continent anyway. So let them use it. It's best if it goes to the research and education community anyway.
Okay. I think I'll call it a day there for questions on Africa. And just in case you forgot, conference November, Dar es Salaam, okay? So, thanks very much, Margaret. I'd like to now introduce another speaker who's probably very well known to you, Catherine Stover from Dante. Catherine's going to talk about the intercontinental achievements and work of Dante, which is impressive. Catherine.
Okay. Yes, good morning. As John said, my name is Catherine Stover. I work in Dante, and I really don't want to say too much because when Dante does these regional projects, what we'd much prefer is that our partners speak. So I'm very pleased that we've already had the presentation here from Margaret, and later on Maya Jose will talk about Latin America, Mary Fleming here will talk about TANE. So my role really here is to close the gaps in those initiatives where we don't have representatives at Terena this time, but we hope to keep increasing the Terena attendance for all the partners coming from the world and make this Terena conference a truly global event as well. So this is a bit of an updated map from the one that Margaret just shown you. It's more spaghetti, Margaret. And I'm very pleased because it shows the Caribbean here for the first time. The CaribNet connectivity, I think Eriko has been pinging back and forth with the Géant NOC for establishing the peering in the Paris pop of Géant. So we are very proud to have a spaghetti now also linking the Caribbean area to the Géant network. And I think this map, over the years, I have seen that develop. And when I look back, in 1996, when I joined Dante, we had connectivity to the US, Korea, and Japan. That was it. And if I look at this now, connecting over 70 countries worldwide now through direct connectivity, managed very closely with partners that we're absolutely integrated with and working really closely. I think this is a grand achievement for the European research area. It gives us access in Europe to all sorts of collaborative partners worldwide. And with this network infrastructure, we really ensure that Europe can collaborate with all our partners in the world where we need to collaborate. So I hope this is going to continue. I hope there's going to be funding soon available to build out infrastructure in West Africa. And then there's really not a lot of places left in the world that we need to be connecting. So I suppose Géant's next aim is then to connect Mars. So this is the infrastructure here, and I would just like to point out also a very special relationship that Géant has in the ACE project with our partners in the United States, specifically with the RNC2 project, which is managed by Indiana University Jim Williams. ACE is really something very special for us because it is a project that is based on cost sharing and reciprocity on the transatlantic links. And through the ACE project, Géant has over the last 2 years doubled connectivity transatlantic to the United States. And that is, of course, not only the benefit of Géant, but also the benefit of our US network partners such as ESNet, Internet 2, or NLR. So I think this is a wonderful map. I don't know if we want to keep adding spaghetti or if we need to come up with a new design solution for that. If anybody has a very smart idea, just let me know. One of the things that we have seen, one of the areas in the world where NRENs have gone through a rather traumatic phase over the last 6 to 10 months has been the Mediterranean region due to reasons of political reasons, mainly in relation to the Arab Spring movement. We've lost actually quite a lot of connectivity to the Mediterranean. At this point in time, we only have connectivity to Algeria and Palestine. But we're hoping to be able to reconnect very soon places like Jordan, Morocco. The Moroccan link is already planned. We're in good contact with Jordan, and we're also aiming to reconnect Egypt very soon. But I think what is important here is the fact that there is a UMEC Connect 3 project, which has been funded again by the European Union. However, you will have seen that Eriko here and Margaret, they were talking about CaribNet and AfricaConnect being funded at 80% from the European Commission. With UMEC Connect 3, which is the third generation of funding cycle from the European Commission to the Mediterranean area, this funding is down to now 36%, which is of course in trying to establish very much the sustainability of networking in that region. And we're very much hoping that through ASREN and through ASREN's increasing contact in the African continent, I'm very pleased about what Margaret reported on the engineers from ASREN, WACRAN and the UbuntuNet Alliance getting together last week in in the Gambia to discuss the interconnection of these networks in the African continent, that we are actually re-stimulating also the NREN movement in the Mediterranean and ensure that this upheaval that has been provoked by the Arabian Spring actually leads again to a strong NREN movement in these countries. Another region in the world that doesn't get a lot of attention from us, but I think the achievement here is actually quite outstanding, is the connectivity to Central Asia. So here you see that we have connected Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan at speeds between 34 and 155 megabits per second. The problem is that we can't show you a regional network map because we have not been able to interconnect these countries to each other, but they are connecting to GEANT in various different ways. So we don't have a regional NREN established where local traffic stays local, which is our overall aim always when we build a network, that we keep local traffic local, regional traffic regional, and then only go on to the international scale. In the Central Asian region, we've not yet been able to do that, and this is why I think they don't really appear on the map because there's not a big regional emphasis on the networks. But still, I think it is quite an achievement to be able to say that now GEANT connects Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan, and is something that when you plan your research projects, please bear that in mind, because NRENs are only valuable when there's users behind them and projects driving the NREN. So when you do have project plans, please bear in mind that there are Central Asian partners now as well. Margaret's already said everything about AfricaConnect, I think, so this is very useful for me. I don't need to say a lot. This is, I think, in Dante at the moment our newest project. We're very excited about it. We're currently in procurement phase. We've decided that there's, as Margaret's been showing you, a lot of continental connectivity already between Africa and Europe, so we are not worried about going north. We're worried now spending these 15 million euros that we've got into inter-African connectivity to ensure, as I said before, that regional traffic stays regional, to build out points of presence in the African region so that in the future the African region doesn't need to go to London, but GEANT can also consider going to, say, Dar es Salaam or Nairobi. So this is, we are in the procurement phase. We have narrowed our connectivity procurement down to 4 providers who have been costing us our ideal topology. I've been falling over at pricing, but Andrew here tells me that he's actually been quite relaxed about the pricing. So I suppose that there's a different standard still of pricing in the African continent to what we see in Europe. We've also started the equipment tender now, and we're very positive about all this. We hope to be launching AfricaConnect in 2 ways. We want to launch it in the community on the 14th to 16th of November in Dar es Salaam at the UbuntuNet Connect conference, which Margaret has already mentioned, and I would really encourage you to go and come and see a really thriving, enthusiastic NREN community in Africa. But we will also have a political launch event for our partners at the European Commission and the African Union Commission, who are really politically and financially backing this project, and that will take place on 27 and 28 of November in Lisbon, and we're very much looking forward to going to Lisbon. So that's it. I think GEANT is the best connected network in the world. From a European perspective, I think we can be immensely happy with the connectivity that we have. As I said before, we reach over 70 countries worldwide these days. We probably reach every country that has an NREN, and we are strongly in the Dante team, and together with our regional partners, we're building out NREN capacities all over the world, because we believe in this model of the NREN, we believe in the model of regional connectivity, and we very much would like to see this grow. And if you have anything to contribute, and if you have a project that you're planning where you think, gee, it would be really nice to have an African, Caribbean, Central Asian partner, please let us know. We can put you in contact with a lot of people in the world, and we would be very happy to be doing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine.
Good. No questions, no?
Yeah, I'll just see if there's any questions. Anybody have any questions for Catherine? It's kind of hard to see from here. No, fine, okay. In that case, thanks very much, Catherine. And I'd like to invite our next speaker from the top of the world. From Australia, I'd like to introduce Mary Fleming, who is the Business Development Director at AARNet, AARNet being the Australian Academic Research Network. And very different perspective of the globe from Australia. Good plan. Slides, yeah. Somebody suggested slides would be a good idea. Thank you, Mary.
So, yes, oh, sorry, I just... So thank you, John, and of course it's my pleasure to follow Catherine. The work of Dante is instrumental in TAN as well. And personally, I think over the time I've been associated with the TAN project, the work of particularly David West, who is the project officer from Dante, in his absolute dedication to the Asia-Pacific region has been probably the reason we've come as far and as fast as we have. So I'm here actually with slightly two hats on my two heads. I'm from AARNet in Australia, but I'm also the chair of the TAN Star CC, which is the new entity that I will talk about creating in Asia. I'm chair of the steering committee, which is a little bit like a board of a corporation that we have created to continue the work of Dante in the Asia-Pac region. So we think a little bit differently when you're as far away as we are from, I guess, Iceland and the European NRENs. Our distances are vast, and our differences in our economic development of the countries in our region is vastly different. Australia, of course, as you can see, sits right at the top of the world. And if you have a look here, we think it's only fitting that Darwin, for those of you who've been to Australia, Darwin is, of course, our very hot tropical north. We think that's only fitting that that sits up on the Arctic Circle. And if you look at our small island of Tasmania, we put that down in North Africa just for a change of climate. So today I just wanted really to focus on TAN, but first just a little bit of an indication of the vast difference or vast distances that we cover. And this is the AARNet international map. And as you can see, our connectivity, we have great distances, but we also have great costs. And I think it is these costs in connecting to the rest of the world that have driven our absolute focus in AARNet in Australia in building and owning our own network as far as we can. So for the last few years, we've had an absolute focus on creating our own network infrastructure. We're only now just really beginning to focus, and I've found this conference extremely valuable for the focus on applications. We've made a significant investment in international connectivity. We're just upgrading our links into the US. We will in the middle of the year in June, have 2 40-gig research and education links into the US. We've upgraded our connectivity into Asia, and in 2014 we will move to dual 100-gig circuits into the US. As well, of course, we have our commodity links, which this year will be 4 times 10-gig circuits. We do, of course, connect the University of the South Pacific in Hawaii, and we connect through to the TAN hub in Singapore. So this morning, just briefly, I want to talk about TAN, and that's the Trans-Eurasian Information Network. This was started back in 2000, and this is what it looked like in 2002. It was simply a connection between Korea and Giant in Europe. By 2006, there were 6 beneficiary partners, there were 5 non-beneficiary partners, and 30 million connected users. Still only 3 hubs, and the backbone was, of course, quite small in comparison to what we are looking to move to now. This, of course, has been aided and abetted by the European Commission funding, and in 2006 this was being managed by Dante. 2012, we're in the transition from Dante to the creation of an Asian lead entity. There are now 12 beneficiary partners and 6 non-beneficiary partners, past the 50 million user community mark, and we now have 4 hubs. Currently there's a 2.5 gig backbone, but we're hoping to move that backbone now to 10 gig circuits to all our major hubs. So TAN had the goals, the simple goals of furthering the development of the Asia-European links and promoting Asian R&D collaboration, and importantly promoting the user applications and the training. I think probably to pick, and I've just picked 3, of probably the major applications that have been focused on, and food security, and like Enrico, we were talking about climate change, climate modeling, and that has been a real focus in recent years, and of course medical training. So I will come back on just a couple of those in just a minute, but before I talk about the application side of what TAN has engendered, just thought I'd just take a couple of minutes to talk about the establishment of the new legal entity. It is a Korean domestically registered entity called TAN CC. As you can see on this graph, the growth over the years from 2000 to 2012 has been really quite outstanding, quite dramatic. So TAN CC stands for the TAN, not sure what the star stands for, but TAN Cooperation Center. This is, as I said, this is a legal entity constructed under Korean domestic law, under the Korean Civil Act, although it does have the ASEM endorsement, and we will have the goal of moving this to a true international organization going forward. This is headquartered out of the Digital Media City. This is a new area, new tech park area in Seoul, about an hour from Incheon Airport. And with the generous support of the Korean government, who are contributing space and resources and outplaced staff to assist, this I think has an extremely good base and a very good future. This is the opening ceremony about 10 days ago in Seoul. Shows the importance to Korea and to the Korean government of having such an august entity as TAN CC located in Korea, and the government have been very generous in their time and in their efforts in working with the European Commission. I want to talk a little bit about the applications. In Australia, we say there's really no mileage in the discussion on the network. The interest is in what goes over the network. And I think in Asia, we in Australia, of course, we focus on some of the high bandwidth applications of astronomy and high energy physics, those which drive the need for big pipes, big bandwidth, high connectivity. But I think in Asia, and which is a much more understandable story, is food security, crop production. The International Rice Research Institute, which is headquartered out of the Philippines, that was, I think, established back in around 1960, and the growth of research worldwide has been extraordinary. Something like 60% of the Cambodian population is dependent upon rice for their income. And the databases and the enormous petabytes of data which is developed by researchers around the world and shared around the world has had just an extraordinary effect on populations such as Cambodia. A 1% increase in rice production with new strains of rice, new grains, new ways of handling, the genetic engineering of hardened crops to prevent crop failure. This has had an enormous impact, and this is something which is very easily understood within governments and within the funding bodies. I'm going to come back on the climate modelling. We were talking a little bit about climate change. I think last year, 2011, was just a disastrous year in Asia. The wildfires in Indonesia, not just impacting on the Indonesian population, they've had widespread and damaging impacts on just about everything from transportation within Asia. I think Indonesia has about the third largest tropical rainforest in the world, and this has just been absolutely devastating. Some of the work which has gone on in terms of providing access to fire works between Australia and Indonesia. I'll come back on that in a little minute. This is Cyclone Yasi again last year. Sorry, I don't have a pointer here, but you can see the edge of North Queensland there. That's approaching the North Queensland coast. That was absolutely devastating. 2 weeks later, these are floods in Queensland. It's a little early in the morning for some of the more graphic pictures that I probably could have picked up. This is in the middle of Brisbane. This is in Toowoomba, just outside of Brisbane. The incredible damage that was sustained within a 1 month period in Australia is just unprecedented. Same year, same month, the earthquakes in New Zealand. They've continued. They started in 2010 and they are still going on, unfortunately. The insurance costs alone. This is in Queensland after Cyclone Yasi. Brings a new meaning to waterfront property, I guess, but you can see just the large boat slightly to the right of the screen there. That's $4 million on its own. So that little pile of boats, hard to guess at the costs, but the effects of the weather events in the Asia area has just been extraordinary in the last couple of years. Well, what could be done about it? Well, probably nothing to prevent it, But some of the work which is going on, this is Dr. Simon Richards at the James Cook University in Townsville. The data that he is generating with 4D models, climate models, and sharing with researchers now throughout Australia. We can see the traffic as the NREN in Australia. We can see the traffic and where it is going, and the numbers of researchers around the world who are sharing in this data modeling. It is quite extraordinary. Simply without the networks, this work would not be going on. Of course, medical training. I noticed Kitamura here. He's been a long-term supporter of the work which goes on with Dr. Shuji Shimizu, who has been an absolute stalwart in the area of endoscopic training in Asia. I think last year there was something like 13 or 14 medical training sessions. These go on not only within the APAN community, but I think the extraordinary thing is that what started as an NREN working group is now largely taken over by the doctors themselves. They run this. This has become an absolute integral part of their training activities and the training of doctors in some of the developing countries, not only in Asia, but around the world. So in summary, I think the NREN development in Asia over the last few years has just been extraordinary. It, particularly the work in food security, the little known work often that goes on. We see, as I said, we see a lot of the promotion of the more high bandwidth applications of astronomy, but some of the societal benefits of the crop research is probably much easier and better exemplars of NREN values. It's certainly easily or more easily understood within the many bureaucracies and the funding bodies that I've had recent dealings with in the Asia community. From Australia's point of view, it's been an absolute pleasure to be involved in the setting up of Tayan Star CC. Now we have to build this into an ongoing and sustainable entity that will manage to stand on its own feet. And we look forward, of course, to see how we can grow this and to collaborate with all of our partners who have spoken before me this morning. So thank you. Hope I haven't.
Thank you very much, Mary. Are there any questions from the floor for Mary? Any suggestions, some comments, some questions?
It's hard to see, isn't it?
It's impossible. You've knocked them dead, huh?
Yeah. No, I'm standing between them and coffee.
No, that's going to be Maria Jose's privilege to keep them here when they should rather be having coffee. So thanks again, Mary. And let me introduce Maria Jose Lopez from Clara. Or should I call you Princess Leia?
Princess Leia. I like that.
We were talking about original names this morning. She wanted to change her name, so Maria's going to talk about the work, the collaborative work that goes on in Latin America with Clara and Maria. Princess.
Thank you. Hello? Anybody there? I'm too tall for that side of the of the scenario, so I will stay here. I don't know how to use this. I know now. Now I know. Thank you. Well, I'm Maria Jose Lopez from Red Clara. I come from Chile in South America. Lots of earthquakes there. What about Red Clara? Red Clara, it is, of course, a human and legal association and an infrastructure. We like to say the most advanced infrastructure in Latin America, which is true, but we are the only advanced network there. These photos there, it is the last meeting we had in past November in Montevideo. These are our members. These are the Latin American NRENs. Some of these NRENs are not quite well established today. For instance, Bolivia and Paraguay. Well, Paraguay is better settled, but Bolivia and Paraguay are not connected today to the network. This is the map, the last topology map. It was the connection to Europe changed to 2.5 gigabits per second on April 24. It's not, as you can see, Cuba is not connected, Nicaragua is not connected, Honduras is not connected, and Bolivia and Paraguay are not connected yet. We are trying to connect them. Our goal is to have them connected by the end of the ALICE 2 project, which is gonna last till September. Probably it's gonna be, we will have an extension till December. But the problem with the connection of these countries, it is not that we don't want to connect them, but for instance, there are political reasons in Cuba, of course, economic reasons in Honduras and Bolivia, and so on. So we hope to have connected probably Nicaragua and Bolivia, and of course Paraguay by the end of the project. We hope so. So Red Clara was settled, the first topology map that we have, the first connections that were made by Erico. Erico used to be our network engineer. Yes, used to be, long time ago. He used to be our network, he's the architect actually. He used to be our network engineer, and when the first connection established was in August of 2004, and at that date we had, I think, probably 4 NRENs connected to Internet 2 in North America, and in 2004 we had 6 NRENs, the 6 NRENs that already existed in Latin America connected to the ring. Well, in 2002, when the ALICE, no, it was CESAR at that moment, the CESAR feasibility study was carried out. We only had 6 NRENs in Latin America. It was, I don't want to make mistakes, but I'm going to do it for sure. It was Chile, Mexico, Argentina, Venezuela, and Brazil. And do you remember? Uruguay, thank you. Catherine was the leader, Dante was the leader of the first ALICE project. The first ALICE project, its intention was to create DC infrastructure in Latin America and connect all the NRENs, but actually it had also to face the issue of creating the NRENs in Latin America. So in some way it is a situation, it is a very similar situation to the one that Margaret and Andrew are experiencing in Africa, and that Erico is experiencing in the Caribbean. But he does already done that before, so it's quite easy, I think. It should be, at least. Well, the ALICE 2 project, its emphasis is on community building and inclusion. And inclusion doesn't only mean integrating the Latin American countries that are not connected, but also to collaborate with the other regions. So we are very concerned about, and we really like to do this, to collaborate with Africa and with the Caribbean. And of course, we would like to be collaborating with the rest of the world. We learned from Dante during the first ALICE project that collaboration, international collaboration, was something that would make our lives easier. So we received so much, then now we think we can give back. So what are we doing today? We are trying to apply our network to solve real problems. As you might know, well, I said I've come from Chile, where is the most seismic country of the world, but we have lots of floods. Those floods there were last year in Venezuela. Of course, we have volcanoes, we have radio astronomy and astronomy. We are using the network to solve real people problems, education, health, and of course, culture. We are developing dances and arts experiences together with Géant. And well, I think, I don't remember who said, the dance experiences between Brazil and Europe. Okay, regarding communities, we started during the first ALICE project, we started the capacity building by creating technical working groups. I remember Erico led the advanced routing group. During that period, we had like 10 working groups. During this second phase of the ALICE project, we have something like 14. We have today 9 working groups, technical working groups operating, but we have had some others. So it is like 14 technical working groups. And today we have 14 scientific communities going on. We can support these communities thanks to the ALICE project and some IDB project also. All these communities, they are all published in our website, so you can check them out there. What else we do? Margaret especially asked me to add some information regarding training. Claudia Cordova, who's seated here, she's the training manager. So during the ALICE 2 project, we have had 7 technical face-to-face training courses, 7 terms of development and REN development. Well, you see there the numbers, so I'm not going to read that. But we the experience in Latin America, of course, as in any other region, is that the results of training the result of that is a very good capillarity. The people who we train are applying this training in their countries. And there's a well-established knowledge base, I would say, today. This is my favorite community because of my background. I'm a journalist, and of course I work in PR and communications. And we did something similar to what you have here in Terena, the Task Force CPR group. We have a CPR group also in Latin America, and we are collaborating with Europe. This is Cristina from Rediris, and with the Caribbean, that is Colleen. And the rest of them, they are all Latin Americans. All these photos are from the meeting we had in Uruguay. We also invited Tivonga from Africa, but due to political reasons, visa reasons, silly reasons, he didn't make it. What we have done, why did I keep this presentation? We have a lot of face-to-face virtual meetings, sorry. We do a lot of meetings by video conference. we have had 2 face-to-face meetings, and during the last one, we decided to do something together in terms of international collaboration. So we decided to create the first global virtual day. And it was such a good experience. I mean, it was the first time that the Caribbean participated in this kind of events. It was really global because we had the participation of people from El Hierro that were studying the volcano formation in El Hierro, that's Spain. We had an expert in the Caribbean, and we have some experts in Mexico and Chile, and they were all talking about a very commercial thing, which is, of course, the end of the world during summer this year. So we spoke, we had people who, very good experts on earthquakes, volcanoes, of course, how to deal with victims. That was the expert from the Caribbean. And in Mexico, of course, we had some specialists about the Maya predictions. So it was very, very intense. The event lasted for probably 4 hours. We had 5 network cuts. So we really suffered that, and we were totally scared of losing the people in the video conference rooms and also in the streaming connection, because we did it through commodity internet and advanced networks also. But it didn't happen. They all wanted to be there because using a very commercial and flashy issue, we talked about science, and we make it to regular people, not for experts. So it was such quite a success. We intend to have a second one by the end of this year. We would love to have the participation of some other regions in order to make it really global. We think that a good issue to talk about would be global warming, but we don't know. We have to discuss. This is a very democratic group. Well, about services and collaboration, a year ago, Red Clara launched its new web portal. This is the public part of the portal, but through it, by connecting, we've got all these kind of services here. We have video conference, big files transfers, e-learning systems. I mean, you have the list there. But the most important thing about that, it is that we are making life easier to Latin American scientists and academics, scientifics and academics. Some of these services don't need you to be registered, so you can check those out and test them. But some others, they require registration, because we like to think about this space like a very exclusive club of friends. So in some way, it looks like a little bit like Facebook, but for communities, and through a very close space in the portal, you can access all the services that are there. So what else? Well, I must say there, the funding opportunities, it is our real star. We thought it was going to be a video conference system or the big file transfer system, but it is not. It is the funding opportunities, which is a very simple tool that gathers together all the funding opportunities in Latin America, in particular countries, and in Europe and the rest of the world. And by subscribing to the portal, you will receive those funding opportunities that are related to your own profile in your email account. You are all invited to integrate that if you want. Well, regarding services, again, we have been working for a couple of months or so, maybe a little more, in this project named El Cira that I decided to put here because this project, it is in collaboration with Terena, Dante, ENFN, and, well, we've got the RNP, Renata, and Redidis also. This particular project that will run for a couple of years, it tends to make better the services that we have today, but also to take EduRoam and EduGain to Latin America. Actually, in a couple of weeks or so, EduRoam is going to be launched by Brazil. So Brazil is the first country in Latin America that has that. And finally, about dissemination, we really care about dissemination. You know, Latin American people, we do laugh and talk a lot. So we try to take advantage of that. In our bulletins, we have newsletters, bulletins. The Declara bulletin, it is very, very old. I don't know, we started 8 years ago, probably. And I invite you all to read the new edition, which is going to be launched during the last week of June. For the first time ever, all the regional network leaders are going to be talking at the same time of a same particular issue, which is research and collaboration, global collaboration. So I invite you all to check that out. It is made in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. What else? Well, those are the URLs. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Princess.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the last presentation. Are there any questions? Any one or two short questions? I can't see it. And in that case, I'd like to just say a few words. I mean, I've been chairing the international session for a few years now, and I'm always amazed at the increased rate of progress that happens year on year. It's absolutely stunning. And in fact, today I feel quite humbled by what I hear going on, the cooperation, and the way that it's really changing real people's lives. So well done you, it's been brilliant, and thanks for coming to the international session. See you at the international session 2013 in Maastricht. So thanks very much.